that would probably be one of my main pieces of advice looking back on it. If there's red flags, there are red flags. Don't think they're pink or a slight shade of white. He's reddish pink. Okay, if there's something that needs to be asked, it needs to be asked.
It's a Milford area school teacher in hot water tonight, accused of an inappropriate relationship with a former student.
The teacher accused of touching a young student inappropriately.
It's a former Indiana teacher is accused of using a student's prize in a school auction as a way to get closer to him and start an inappropriate relationship.
One 11-year-old girl who attends this school says the band assistant touched her inappropriately several times, and right now police and the school are investigating.
And now 3 former educators face charges. It's happening in Woodward County. KOCO's Morgan Chesky with how investigators track them down.
Rick, as you might expect, many people in Seymour were shocked to hear that a teacher they've sat across the table from at parent-teacher conferences could face such serious charges.
New tonight, the Highlands County School District under fire and under investigation for failing to report possible child abuse.
Police say she allegedly sent inappropriate videos of herself to an 18-year-old student.
In Delaware County, a school counselor facing criminal charges accused of sexual exploitation of teenage boys. And police tell us Daryl Hughes used his job to target the students.
This criminal complaint tells a minor story about how Hughes made him feel like they were friends, allegedly buying him cigarettes, alcohol, and drugs.
The facts are, Mr. Hughes had the underage victims take their clothes off, then took photographs of them, promising it would help launch their modeling careers.
Police say inside Hughes' home, they found hidden cameras. Then they say they found a memory card inside a potted plant. They say when they reviewed the material, it showed a young man getting out of the shower. Neighbors are shocked at the news.
Yeah, he used to be outside cleaning up his yard. I mean, he kept it looking real nice. You never would have thought anything about him like that, ever.
4 other potential victims have also come forward, accusing Hughes of similar acts. Stories dating between 2007 and 2013. Prosecutors are asking any other potential victims to please come forward.
Every week there are new reports of children being victimized by adults, relatives, neighbors, and even educators. The purpose of this training video is to raise awareness for Indiana educators and ultimately eliminate these child predators from being a danger to our students. The Indiana Department of Education, in partnership with the Indiana Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, want all teachers to be aware of mandatory reporting requirements, red flags, behaviors of potential offenders, and to understand how and when to make a report.
One of the challenges we encounter is that many people think I would recognize a sexual predator. I would recognize a child molester.
You're not going to be able to reliably identify a child sex offender simply by looking at them. You have to think about and have the training and experience to understand what behavior you observe.
You could sense the teachers felt, even if they had any type of slight suspicion, well, it couldn't possibly be that because the student likes him so much. The flags, something's going on, or anger, or those types of issues weren't there, so what they were seeing was me, producing results with these students. The atmosphere was that he's doing such good work that we would I think most people would just push away any kind of doubt or anxiety that they might have, even if it was just a passing thought. They would make it sure it just kept passing.
People in the school environment typically wouldn't do just one thing. It's going to be a course of conduct that we generally label as grooming.
One of the things we see when someone is grooming or essentially trying to seduce a child is they generally do that through a combination of attention, affection, and gifts. They're going to prey on a child who either in reality or in their own perception are not receiving that attention, affection, and gifts at home. There were definitely things that I was doing to make them feel more comfortable, by things I was purchasing, things I was offering to them. Most of the kids that unfortunately were victims were of socioeconomic lower class, and so they weren't having even some of their basic needs met, financially. And so
even if it was something like clothing items or cigarettes. It was a way of appearing to be cool with them and having a bond with them, maybe a relationship with them that wasn't like anybody else. Unfortunately, that would lead to them having a higher level of trust with me.
Daryl Hughes used a number of methods to grooming behaviors with the students at his school. He would provide them with gifts. He would use his influence with the probation department to get some of these students out of trouble. Daryl Hughes would also take these students home with him, have them do jobs at his home.
In your particular case, these students came over, they took showers at your house, and part of that was filmed.
Yes.
What was the method to get them comfortable enough to where they would take showers at your house?
Having them do work where they would want to get cleaned up before I took them out to eat, before I took them back home to the city where they lived.
And essentially what they're doing is they're trying to slowly and systematically build the trust with that child and erode the boundaries that child has built up of what is appropriate versus inappropriate behavior. Generally, humans are built with a sixth sense. We can tell when something is wrong, when something's inappropriate, when something's dangerous. Some of the most significant investigations with offenders that were victimizing multiple children in a very egregious way over a long period of time, that initial phone call, how we became aware of it, was someone that said, I almost didn't call you. I almost didn't pay attention to this, but I thought I should. What you need to do as a school administrator is trust that intuition, trust that instinct.
It felt like a lot of stuff had been ignored, and a lot of stuff was ignored. That, I think, contributes to an atmosphere where this can happen.
When your intuition kicks in that something may be going wrong, and when you think about their behavior, you need to start thinking about whether we're going to need to make a report here.
When it comes to your attention that someone you've worked with every day, had lunch with, maybe gone out to dinner with, maybe mistreating a child, it's a really hard thing to accept, and it's hard to make that report. But the point of making the report is to allow a professional to check it out.
When we conduct these investigations, we are cognizant of the potential social impact of these investigations. The beginning of our investigations leave a very, very small footprint.
We're sensitive to the school environment when we approach one of these cases. We approach those in the vast majority of our investigations in plain clothes without raising any suspicion that the police are involved. That way, if the allegations are unfounded, we can step the investigation back down without leaving a negative impression in anyone's minds.
I know that I passed people all the time that had some type of doubt, and it wasn't just my paranoia. I could sense it, I could feel that there was something that was going on. And so my answer to that was just try to become even better at what I did so they wouldn't possibly want to think that that could be true.
One of the common mistakes we see the schools make is that they'll wait to make their report to law enforcement. They're going to try to do their own internal investigation first. They're going to try and identify the victim. They're going to try to determine what the scope of the criminality is, how many victims there are, how far it went. And that is a mistake, because in doing that, in many cases, what they're doing is they are altering, they're damaging the evidence that we need to make those determinations.
Something that happens a lot is a report comes to a member of the staff and they're concerned, but they're really uncomfortable making a report, so they go have the child talk to someone else. And then that person is uncomfortable, so they have the child talk to 2 or 3 people before it really gets to the phase of making a report. That creates huge issues for the child. Having a child come in, confronting them in front of other children is a problem. Having the child come in and confronting them in front of the alleged offender is a huge problem. Confronting the alleged offender is problematic. If you're not trained to do that investigation and you're talking to a colleague, you're not going to be effective and you're going to tip them off.
I believe it would be difficult for a school administrator to conduct an investigation like this because of the lack of training and expertise. I could probably pick up a math book and struggle through teaching a class and do a passable job of it, but I would never approach the level that a math teacher could in that classroom. In the same way, a school administrator could probably do what they believe is a passable investigation into an alleged offense against a child, but they would never be able to bring the expertise that we bring to the table.
They shouldn't wait until they have absolute metaphysical certain knowledge that there's misbehavior, because if that's the required standard, the offender's going to get away with it. So if you have a serious question about why, for example, a teacher provided cigarettes to a student, you should be making that report.
Indiana law requires any adult over the age of 18 to report abuse of a child if they have a reasonable belief that abuse has occurred. Beyond that, the state also requires that certain individuals, including employees of a school facility, make a report. And that is to be an immediate oral report through the Department of Child Services Child Abuse Hotline or to their local law enforcement agency.
The question is, what is the right thing to do? The right thing to do is to make sure that an allegation is investigated thoroughly and professionally. The best case is the outcome is that the allegation isn't true. That's great. Everyone moves on. The worst case is there's no successful investigation. The teacher's allowed to resign, they move on to the next school, and they do it all over again and again and again, because everyone's more concerned about will there be publicity, will we look bad, than they are making sure that they've protected the kids in their school and in the next school. Legally, if you don't report something that you're required to report, you're committing a crime.
What we would like to see happen whenever someone has any questions on if something's a reportable offense or not is just to go ahead and contact us. If something seems like it's out of the ordinary and they think there may be an offense against the child occurring, leave it to us to evaluate whether something has happened or not.
The best piece of advice I have for school officials who are involved in cases like this is to contact law enforcement as soon as possible. If you see something, say something. Allow us to evaluate the case and continue the investigation from there.